everything has to fit towards this hole that I'm covering with my finger, which is on this end of the gun, which is where the disconnect sticks up. So let's put these two pieces together, hold them together, and we're going to slide it in here. And this is kind of hard to do on camera for you to see. I have everything lined up, sort of. We're now going to take a very small punch and we're going to turn the gun over and we're going to look inside this hole and we're going to try to line everything up with the punch first. This takes a little bit of patience. I don't know if I got it. If I got it, if I shake this, nothing will fall out. And I don't have it because if you can see right here, the pin is not through the sear. So I didn't get it in, I didn't get it exactly right. Okay, now you notice the punch is now behind the sear. If you can see this or not. And if I pull the trigger with the punch in here, okay, it's obviously it's not going to work because there's no spring tension, but if I shake the gun and move it all around, the sear and the disconnect don't come out. Now the reason I use this small punch is for an alignment tool. So I'm going to put this down to the side for a minute. And again, there are two pins that are very similar in size that hold the sear and disconnect in. The other pin holds the hammer in. But the pins are two different sizes. Notice this pin is a little bigger, and somewhere on this table I know I have the other pin. Here it is. Okay. You notice the pins are two different diameters. The smaller diameter pin is for the sear and the disconnect. The larger diameter pin is for the hammer. And they both have a little ridge on them on the end of the pin. Okay, and that ridge is going to be on this side of the frame when you put it back together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another small screwdriver, or I'm going to take another punch, and I'm going to push this punch out. No, it's not going to work. Okay, I'm going to get me a small screwdriver. And we're going to push this punch out. And we're going to push the punch with this screwdriver and push the punch out. And this keeps everything aligned. There's a screwdriver went through. Now we got that through. Now we're going to take the pin and push the screwdriver back out. And you kind of want to wiggle and jiggle here a little bit. And it went through. Now put pressure on the pin again. Notice sear and the disconnect are not coming out. Okay. So we have that back together. Now the next thing we want to put in is the hammer. And the hammer goes in a lot easier than the sear and the disconnect. We just have to make sure we put it back in the right direction. And make sure the hammer strut is up and the thumb part of the hammer where you would cock it is towards the back of the gun. We just put this in and we line it up in the hole. And take the pin and push the pin in. And now the hammer's in. Flip the mainspring up. I'm sorry, flip the hammer strut up, and we're going to now put in the leaf spring. Okay, the leaf spring. As we put it in, we're going to put it in. You're going to put it like this, and then pull it back down and set it down. This notch here is going to fall inside of this hole when we put it back in. So we take this, turn the leaf spring over and lift it up. I didn't get it right. Up a little bit, and then it just rests forward and snaps down on the gun. The next part of this is we put the mainspring back in. And we're going to put the mainspring in. A little bit. Bring the hammer strut down. And if you notice on the mainspring, there is a recessed spot in here, which is where the hammer strut will go into. And when then you cock the hammer, it pushes this down, and that gives it the tension to bring the hammer back up to fire the bullet. So we're going to put this in, and we're temporarily going to put it together. Line it up. Okay. And we want to make sure that the hammer is all the way forward. And this takes a little manipulating to get it to sit right in that spot. Make sure the hammer is all the way forward. I think that's why it didn't want to seat in here properly. Because when you put it in, it should pretty much slide in without any resistance, and you should be able to see this hole right here where the retaining pin is going to go in. But before we put the retaining pin in, I'm going to put a punch in this hole and make sure that so far everything is working. Because I'm going to put this punch in. The reason I'm putting the punch in is because I'm going to be cocking the hammer back. And if I cock the hammer back without the pin, it's going to push the mainspring down. You see how it pushed it down? Okay, so put that back in. Okay, now with everything together. Now this is again temporarily together, but when we do this, we should hear, when we cock the hammer back, we should hear two distinctive clicks. That was one, that's the half cock, and that's full cock. And then if we pull the trigger, and again we're gonna put our finger on the hammer. If we pull the trigger, the hammer should fall. Okay, now as you can see, I didn't have my finger on there, but I didn't let it slap against the back of the frame, which is what you want to avoid. Okay, so now we have the hammer forward. Now we're actually going to put the pin back in to hold the mainspring in. Now if you remember before, I told you that there's that I replaced the pin with a standard 1911 pin versus the pin that came with the gun. This is the pin that came with the gun. And if you notice, if you can see this, it's flat on both sides. Okay, it's completely even. It still has the notch cut in it, but the other pin, the one end is rounded, and this end has a little divot cut in it, and this end is we want to put towards the frame side of the gun, or towards this side of the frame on the gun. And what happens is, because this is rounded, inside the mainspring there's another little pin that's sticking down that holds the it's part of the mainspring assembly. Because this is rounded, this kind of rolls itself over that pin, whereas this pin, because it's flat, you have to really hammer hard on it to get it started. Once you get it started, it'll go in, and then the pin in the mainspring catches in the notch. So I'm going to put this pin in, going to get it started just a little bit, take and tap it with a hammer, and then I'm going to finally seat it with a punch. And you'll feel a little bit of a snap as it snaps in. Okay, so I'm going to cock the hammer back and try it again. And now we're going to put the grip safety back in. Now in order to do that, we put the grip safety in, and this slot here, let's zoom this back out. You can't see anything. Yeah, that's better. This slot here has to line up with the hammer strut. And that just snaps right in. And now comes the fun part. Putting this safety back in. And it's not necessarily putting the safety in, it's putting in that pin and the spring. So we're going to put the thumb safety back in and get it started.